And we're missing one person. There you go. There's always one that's late, isn't there? Okay. Kabelo, thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you,
If you'll
Jeremy.
sit over there. Thanks a lot. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. What did you make of that last panel discussion? Let's start with you.
It's important,
Yeah.
extremely, extremely important.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a father of 2 daughters. The one is 12, the other one is 4.
Good luck, my friend. I'm the father of 2 daughters. Do you know what they call me at home? The wallet. Okay? Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah. And mine are in their 20s.
Ooh.
Really, it never stops.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that men sometimes are deficient in the workplace relationship?
We are.
Yeah.
It's not just a thought. It's something that is happening, and we can fix it. It just takes willpower, and there's a lot that we still have to unlearn ourselves as men. We have our own internal demons. We sometimes feel attacked because we do not understand ourselves as well. But there's a lot that needs to happen, and for those men who are already woke, it's our responsibility to, even in the conversations we have amongst ourselves, there's often a boys' club group thing that happens all the time.
Yeah.
In those circles, when we're having conversations, nobody's calling the other out when somebody uses the B word, for instance. Just those little things that happen in those conversations, they translate to business and into everything else. And that's what we have to undo a lot.
From your lips to God's ears, I hope.
Yeah.
Kabelo, what do you think?
I actually agree as well. There's a lot that we need to do as men to really understand. I always look at this thing as, you know, for women, especially for black women, and for us as men being black, they take in the last seat. And we need to educate ourselves on how do we respect them. And we also need to be able to educate other men on how should we looking at women not as an object, but with what they're bringing, with their capabilities and so on.
Do you have good insurance on that watch, by the way? Have you seen the watch, everybody? This is a big watch. It's a Gupta watch. Eh? Stop it, Jim. Guys,
Oh my
I didn't
God.
mean to say that. I don't know, the devil sat on my shoulder. Folks, the topic of this conversation is taking ownership. We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to get a male counterpoint to what these 3 amazing women have said. And Chezi, there is deficiency here. What do men need to do to act differently in the workplace?
I think as men, we need to really start appreciating strong, powerful women and not feel intimidated by them. Stories are always being told of women saying they can't go forward because the men feel threatened by them being at the forefront. So even I myself, even though I'm in farming, which is mostly male, but wherever one can, one really has to try and make sure that where there's space where I can be diverse, that I must do so. I've also got a daughter now. I used to have a boy for like 6 years, and then a daughter came 2 years ago. So we have to create an environment where, when in 10 years' time, they're not having the same discussions
Precisely.
that they're having, because those are very sore discussions. I can imagine if my daughter were to have the same conversation
Then
30 years' time,
we have failed as a country.
I would have failed. Yeah.
You know, just looking at you and your outfit, I would never have guessed you in agriculture, by the way.
We're trying to make farming fashionable.
You're the most fashionable farmer I've ever seen. What's your understanding of the topic, taking ownership? Is there a failure sometimes for entrepreneurs to grasp the run?
I think we're transitioning, and it's allowed. I work with a lot on the ground with grassroots entrepreneurs. I travel the continent engaging people with ideas and hoping to turn them into entrepreneurs at some point. But we've got to be patient. It's like the Silicon Valley dream. We often think we're on par with what's happening in America. We forget that sometimes we're 100 years behind just in terms of infrastructure development. And we've got to take our own journey. And owning our stories is a big part of that. And like what you're doing in agriculture, I'm blown away. I must just start there. You know, it goes back to thinking around what are we as Africans good at. We're community-centered. And often we hear conversations around, we don't like looking at each other in the eyes when we greet each other. It starts there, those little attitudes. And we think that's a bad thing. We've been told that's a bad thing because the Western concept is that you must look at a person in the eye and shake them strong. But in African cultures, that you respect your elders and you've got a particular protocol in how you do things. We don't take ownership of
There's
that
a
story.
respected deference, yes.
Yes, and if we took ownership and took pride in that process and how we do things in that way, we would be far by now. But we've been told that the way that we do things is a bit backward. And that's, for me, the beginning of taking ownership, owning the stories and owning the narrative and understanding who we are first before we even go out and solve other people's problems.
But I'm also going to suggest, Kabelo, it's more than just taking ownership of the stories. It's taking ownership of what else?
A good one, because I'm looking at entrepreneurship, especially in Africa or South Africa. It just doesn't mean we take ownership of what you're trying to build. It's an ownership. You're looking at, like yesterday is when the crime stats was red. What are we saying, and what was that stats affecting us as entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
What type of ownership are we taking in terms of our economy, and what part are we doing in terms of the South Africa in general? Are we just an entrepreneur because of we need to make an income for ourselves and build,
But often that is the case, though.
which is wrong?
It's entrepreneurship by necessity, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, still we as an entrepreneurs, we're starting to understand that taking ownership means that we need to be responsible. We need to be responsible that things that are happening in South Africa, we cannot have a country where there's a lot of beautiful and great minds around, and there's a lot of high unemployment. We cannot be in South Africa where we as an entrepreneurs, we are unable to produce companies that can be a multinationals and starting to compete in that level. And when we're doing that, for us, it's taking ownership of first where we are, because of if you're making something as an entrepreneur and it benefits the rest, then we taking ownership of the country in general to the point where we will start to taking ownership of the continent through our great ideas.
But entrepreneurs don't often think that way, or they are unable to think that way because they're simply focusing on the next day, whether it's meeting the payroll, whether it is talking to suppliers, whether it's managing the distribution chain. And while I accept the fact that it's important to think bigger, to think in terms of community responsibility and accelerated growth in that respect, entrepreneurs don't have the time to do that, do they?
They don't, but they have to find the time. Someone once said that in a day you need to have three top things that will grow your business 10 times, and you must spend half.
Say
your
that again.
times-
That's important, guys.
Yeah.
Listen to that.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an entrepreneur, 3 things that will grow your business tenfold.
Tenfold. And if
Okay.
you're spending half your day not doing any of those things, then you are on a spiral downwards.
So what would one of those things be?
For me, like I'm in farming. So
What do you farm?
we do livestock farming. We call
Okay.
it crowd farming, enabling people to who don't have land to.
I'm an absolute idiot. You're a founder of a company called
Yeah,
Livestock
Livestock
Wealth.
Wealth,
Obviously,
yeah.
it's livestock. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, sure.
It's not lavender farming. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have to do to grow is to know where the small farmers are. You know, with the farmers which, as they're saying, in South Africa there's 1 million communal farmers who currently own about 80 billion rands worth of cows. But they are scattered all around, everywhere, but it's latent value that is there. And what we're then doing is saying, let's go find where they are, build relationships, help them improve their farming, and then we can then formalize them into the supply chain.
So lead on from that, Selebogo, if you can. That's also, it's making sure that you are working on having the right intelligence in your business. And I'm talking about, intelligence data that you can use,
Yeah.
but also being able to act swiftly on that while you're also conducting the day-to-day business.
Yeah.
So it's a question of splitting yourself in two. Entrepreneurs, again, I put the same question to you. Entrepreneurs find it difficult to do that.
Yeah, a big part of the problem is we don't understand what problem we're solving. And because we don't understand that, unless you're solving problems, you're not getting paid. Those that are solving problems have less issues when it comes to finances because there's an abundance of problems across Africa.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody who's willing to pay. But we're not spending enough time crafting our value proposition as well as finding people that we can partner with. In general, when you look at communities, a lot of communities are in nature stockpiles more than anything. We get together where if there's a death in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
everybody clubs together and we try and solve that problem so that this person can get buried. If we just took that same thinking and applied it into the entrepreneurial ecosphere, things would change for us.
Kabila, do you think that entrepreneurs by definition are better problem solvers?
Yes, we are problem solvers, but then it depends as well to say, how, like you cannot just solve a problem in an environment where it doesn't support you. And I think this is where now it marginalizes us as entrepreneurs because we need to have a support. We need to be, if you're solving a certain type of a problem, which is him in farming, and how does he reach out to those other farmers? Where you then going to be an economic solution in the country. Because of what we are doing, I always say this, that entrepreneurs, we are playing a role whereby the bigger role is this. You're becoming an entrepreneur so that you can employ someone who was unemployed. That is the goal of being an entrepreneur. Through your problem solving, you are creating an opportunity. But if you're going to be in an environment whereby it's not supportive.
So the goal of an entrepreneur is to create employment for someone who's unemployed. I thought the goal of an entrepreneur was to get rich.
This is one of the mindset that we need to change. And that's why I said in terms of taking ownership, I can be rich, but if you are rich around people that are poor, what's going to happen? You're going to be mad at, you know? So this is where we're talking about taking ownership.
Spreading the love.
You have to, because of, you cannot just gonna come and just stand out and the surroundings around you, it's not really conducive. So for you to say you have done well is to making sure that we're changing the economy of us first as South Africa and what is the role that we're going to play as entrepreneurs.
It's a very noble way of doing things. Not everyone has that nobility. I mean, by
course.
definition, often entrepreneurs are also
Yeah.
selfish people. They're in it for themselves.
Of course.
So how do you change the mindset?
I say that a good entrepreneur is the one that you are selfish without people noticing that you're selfish by considering them. So, of course, you're going to run your goal, you're going to run your vision, but you shouldn't just run a vision whereby it's about you. It should always go back to the ground of benefiting the country, benefiting generations to come. We are talking about the last panel that just came in here. If it's just about the women now and the same generations after them, they're still going to fight the same battles, then they haven't done anything. And for us as entrepreneurs, we need to take our country, especially now, whereby only corporates that are in South Africa, they are not an answer. Government is not an answer. Then us putting ideas and believing in ideas in a way that we can start to create a platform whereby South Africa can be economically strong. And that's the role of an entrepreneur.
Apart from Lucas, does anyone else want to ask a question? Okay. Lucas, you've been blacklisted for the next 5 minutes. Okay. Where's our microphone? Okay. All right. Guys, I'm just going to, there's someone there who's, let's go with you first. Okay, remember, short question? Let's go.
It's going to be a short question and it's going to address all the problems that South Africa and Africa want.
Well, you should be sitting on the panel then if you've got all the answers. Okay. All right.
My name is Oscar. My company is Little Trading Enterprise. The problem, my question is that how do we solve the problem that we are facing in Africa as a whole, not besides South Africa? As we see, the problem that is killing entrepreneurship in Africa is because of greedy, because of selfish, because of not wanting to collaborate one another. And the economy not transform our economy. The policies are not yet transformed. That's why we got the level of statistic crime that is happening. Because many are knocking at the doors. But because they're being rejected because of the economy that is all not in transformed. And now they start transforming people to be entrepreneurs, not to be handovers. Government to come and gives them something. So that, because if you give me bread today, tomorrow I'm going to ask a bread. But if you teach me, how can I get the bread next tomorrow? I will able to see how you manage to get the bread. I will able to stand myself. The problem that we have is the transformation, policies, gritty.
Okay, I just want to say to you, there's only one person I know who gives longer speeches on that, and that's Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Okay? And he's much older than you, so he's allowed to do it. But he does raise an interesting point, and that's about policy. Let me rephrase it and call it the enabling environment. And often there is a complaint from entrepreneurs that the enabling environment is not good enough in order to create the kind of optimum working conditions that you're looking for.
That's definitely true,
Yeah.
Jeremy. I think what needs to be done, because government has got so much power in terms of policies,
Yeah.
etc. You know, I think that people who are put into policy-making decisions must have a requirement as part of the job spec that you have been an entrepreneur, at least for 1 year, you know, full-time. Because what you always find is that government departments return money to the fiscus unspent, yet there is entrepreneurs who could have helped in terms of delivering that, whatever the services was needed. I'm making an example, like with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. Last year, they returned R1 billion back to Treasury, unspent. Yet, we've got programs that no one has created a policy that fits our program, but we've got results, and yet we need money, are not having that oxygen of money to run properly. Yet government is returning money back to the fiscus unspent, which is totally crazy.
All right, so you've spoken in very broad terms.
Yeah.
What policy change would make the life of an entrepreneur easier?
There's one thing I know. For example, the requirement that every tender document needs to have a tax clearance kills a lot of entrepreneurs. It's okay if you're starting the business today, but if you're 4 years into the business, you're probably a few months behind with tax, and then you can't even get out of the hole because you can't get the next tender to get you out of the hole because they say, tax clearance, you can't get in. Even funding, that's how crazy it is in this country.
And I presume that many of you who are in the entrepreneurial space would, just by show of hands, would you tax clearance certificate, something as simple as that, a more streamlined approach. But I don't want this to degenerate into a conversation about SARS, because we've all got to go home tonight at some point. Folks, I'm going to take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I think what we're going to do is we can have a break, stretch our legs, have a cup of tea. We'll come back for the remaining 2 or 3 panel discussions that we've got. But let's see, anybody else want to? Gentleman over here, that's 1. Okay, where's our microphone? Ma'am, if you can get it there. Anybody in the middle? And lady over here. Let's get the microphone here straight afterwards with the spots on her dress. There we go. Off you go.
All right, thank you so much. I was overtaken by Levo's presentation this morning.
What does it say on your T-shirt?
That's Africa Tikkun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I just wanted to get it from you guys that what is your take with the 4th industrial revolution? What is the concept? With the business industry you're in, how do you get to be part of the 4th industrial revolution? Thank you so much.
What a good question. It's also, it's how you immersing yourself in technology.
Yeah.
Let's start with you.
I think sometimes it's like English when you want to use big words. Technology is very simple. Like in South Africa, there's a whole obsession around app development. We don't need apps. The market is too small for them. So how do we focus on the real things? Let me give you an example about what we are doing. One of the things that we founded last year is a platform called the People's Fund. It's an asset crowdfunding platform. We try and help small businesses, neighborhood businesses, to raise money for assets so that they can improve their businesses. And then we reward the crowd with money. as the business performs. And for that, we built a simple WordPress website. We built a website on the back of WordPress. What that enables us to do is to make sure that as we scale, we don't have to invest too much money in terms of development. And yeah, go ahead.
Do you think we're over-obsessed with technology?
We can't be obsessed
do, you,
with
do you need robots like this one with the creepy eyes?
we can never say, or we cannot be over-obsessed with technology, because I think there's no business that will run without technology. When you start your business, you're talking about operations and systems. And for you to be able to measure the efficiency of your business, because of the reasons why we as Africa or South Africa, we've been regarded as the third world, is because of we never match or try to match in terms of our technology. In marketing, for an example, it's all about, if I'm going to have retailers or merchandisers going to the stores, someone could leave my office, and how will I measure that they actually went and do something? And I need to, but this is where the technology is coming, because of what technology does, it increases the speed. And once it increases the speed, then you are able to be effectively, and it gives
So
you competitive
optimize
advantage.
it, in other words.
Yes.
But also understand that it's a necessary component of your business. Spend wisely, I'm assuming, when you do it.
Of course.
All right. Chezi, what about you?
I think it's
How are you embracing the fourth industrial revolution when it comes to cattle?
yeah, we're doing some really cool stuff on that. One, because if a person wants to own cattle and the cattle are far away, you want to have the trust that things are going okay. So we're embracing that tech to be able to track and monitor the cattle, even remotely. We're just busy with the pilot now in partnership with Huawei, the mobile brand. And we should be able to, in a couple of months' time, be able to tap your phone and actually see
So
the
what
cow
are
on
you
the
doing?
phone.
Are you issuing the cows with cell phones? What is the...
Close, yeah, but each cow has a connectable device, which is that fourth industrial. It's a connectable device with a sensor that can connect to the internet. It's really almost like your...
And what information does that give you?
One, that the cow is alive
Yeah,
and moving,
it's important. It's also important.
and safe. In other words, like if there's sudden movements now at 2 a.m. in the morning, then I can be able to say that it's time to take out the gun,
Yeah.
and start shooting.
Stop them.
Such is
Yeah.
the life of a farmer. One more question, then we're going to break. Yeah. Tom, should be. Nice and loud, please, ma'am. Okay. Just speak big.
Okay, I'll speak.
There we go.
The gentleman mentioned something relating to tax clearance. And from my observation, you would find that many of small businesses find it very expensive to, we don't have money to pay for compliance issues. I mean, your auditing, your insurance advisory services, and I just want to find out, among ourselves as small business people, obviously there are some professionals who are in the field of accounting, audit, tax, insurance advisory, and so on. Couldn't we perhaps form some forums and come up with some affordable rates for our members, for other SMMEs, to be able to help them to be compliant?
You do raise a bigger issue, and I'm going to end with that. It's a good idea, but part of it is also the cooperative association among entrepreneurs. The point that we've been making the whole day today is using this opportunity that you have to get to know each other and to network and to feed off each other as you leave here. But is there enough of that kind of cooperative engagement?
It's happening and it's accelerating,
Yeah.
thanks to technology.
Yeah.
There's a platform called Brown Sense.
Yeah.
It's one of the largest.
Say it again in case anyone didn't hear it.
Brown Sense,
Okay.
founded by Mzuzugile.
Okay.
He's one of my business partners.
Okay. BROWNSENSE.
Yes.
Okay.
You search for it on Facebook, very
Okay.
easy. You apply and then you get in.
Make a note of that.
Yeah.
It's important.
And then there's a platform I founded. It's called the Hookup Dinner. the hookup dinner brings entrepreneurs together to collaborate, and we do this across the continent. It's chapter-driven, locally driven by the local entrepreneurs, and we just collect the data behind that. So, and the People's Fund is founded by all of these companies together. So this is where we believe that collaboration is the new innovation. And we now have what we call the People's Stokvel. And the People's Stokvel has become the biggest funder of campaigns on the People's Fund. All I'm simply saying is that there's different businesses, there's different business people doing things amazing in their own spaces. But when we come together, we cut out the issues of cost and somebody knows something that you often don't know on the other side. And we're constantly collaborating and finding ways to bring down the cost of doing business.
2 quick responses. Don't discount the power of collaboration.
Of course, collaboration works, but we cannot just work on collaborations first. I liked what he said about policies and addressing the issues to do with entrepreneurship. We cannot, first of all, what creates a baffle is government influencing policies and also not government to be reactive. Because of what government is doing with entrepreneurs is very reactive. When you're an entrepreneur, government at SARS will account an account manager to collect. But can't they use the very same systems to say, for the fact that you are doing so well that we then need to call you every month for us to collect from you, use a proactive and sit down with you to say, how can we help you to improve? And this is where the proactiveness from government, because of at the same time, we as South Africa, especially for black entrepreneurs, we got excellent programs in terms of policies, like your BEE programs. Those BEE programs, if every company or private companies has to go on and support the BEE and had to be done well, we would have so many entrepreneurs in terms of blacks being upscaled and being able to provide jobs. The reason is, there is no one from government is able to ensure that corporates are following the BEE structures. So it's about marking the tick, and that's it. You just come, this year you're in business, then next year there's no support. And government needs to then start to be, we cannot have a platform like this as SMME, where it puts entrepreneurs into the scale. Can't we have a platform like this, and government sits, every department here, and talk to us as entrepreneurs? We will tell them about the issue of tax clearance. We're not talking about we don't want to pay. Our business has to, but
Just make it easier.
make it easier.
Yeah.
And month end comes in, if I have so much of an overhead, who am I going to pay? Am I going to pay VAT or my staff first? You know? So government needs to be realistic to say, why we're having such issues is that again.
I know what your staff's answer would be to that one.
Yeah.
I've just got a text from someone saying, why am I giving the boys' club more time than the girls? So quick answer, then we're going to
Yeah.
break for tea.
Yeah, I think on collaboration, we can really learn from nature. In the wild, all the giraffes and all the other animals protect themselves from predators by sticking together.
Oy, this is a real African conference. We've had eagles, now we've got giraffes,
That's true.
we've got cattle.
But
Buffalo.
I'm a farmer. It's really so. If you watch National Geographic, you
Yeah.
will see that. And then really the guys who go outside the herd are the ones who get eaten first by the lions. So that's the one thing. And I'm glad the platforms exist, and I encourage entrepreneurs stick together. There's power when we are together.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.